All right, welcome back in. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Friday forecast as we get ready for Auburn at Texas A&M. Appreciate everybody joining us. I am Justin Hokanson, and with me is somebody that everybody knows, I think, that watches Auburn football. John Samuel Shenker. Man, what's going on?
Appreciate you having me, Justin. Loving life. My wife and I are expecting our first child, so we're getting really excited about that. But we're here in Auburn, technically still a free agent in the NFL right now, but um, been able to be in Auburn these last couple of weeks and enjoy the fall.
So people don't know Shanker. Like I think moving forward, he's going to be a regular guest with us on the Friday forecast. I think, and I'm really excited. I mean, you obviously bring a perspective that I and nobody else on our site can bring, having played the game, played at Auburn, and so I'm really pumped about you being on the show and just bringing a whole different look and a lot of knowledge, man, a lot of knowledge to what we're going to talk about. So we're going to get into Auburn, Texas A&M. I want to get your thoughts a little bit on how the season's gone so far since you haven't been on. So I want to get a few impressions of kind of what you've seen so far, good, bad, and all that good stuff. And so we'll get into all that real quick. Before we do, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of the show, a major sponsor, Game Time. There's the graphic from Zach in the back. Game Time. Go to gametime.co, not .com. It's gametime.co. It's a great website, great app. Go download the app for tickets, sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, all that kind of stuff. It's really easy to use. Sometimes I've had hassles with Ticketmaster and StubHub, and it's just hit or miss. Game Time does a really, really good job. It's really easy to use. They have a 110% guarantee. So if you get tickets on Game Time and then you see like the exact same ticket on another site for less, you can there's a way through the Game Time app that you can get your money back and go, hold on, this site's got it for less. I'm going to get my money back. So that's a pretty cool thing. So they pretty much guarantee their work in that way. So if you're going to College Station this week, which is a great place to go see a game, go to the Game Time app. Like if you don't have tickets, or maybe you just got tickets in the upper deck or something, and go check Game Time. Maybe you could turn around and sell what you have and go find something cheaper or better through Game Time. But if you're going to College Station, go check that out. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code ON3 for $20 off. I want to make sure I get that right. ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, all that good stuff. But spell out ON3 and you get $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. So appreciate them. All right, Shanker. All right, before we get into Auburn, Texas A&M, I think, Zach, you can toss it up there. What are they, still 6.5-point underdogs or something like that? Before we get into Auburn at Texas A&M, I want to get a couple of your thoughts on the season so far. Obviously, the win at Baylor and then the close loss at OU last Saturday. From what you've seen, what are a couple of things that stand out to you offensively, defensively, that stand out good, bad, that give you hope that it's different from last year, or something that you're like, this is a concern that it keeps happening? Like, what are some things that have just sort of stood out when you're trying to figure out if this team can get over the hump or not?
Well, I think last year the problems were evident. A lot of turnovers, a lot of just mental errors and mistakes. And I put a lot of emphasis on the Baylor game myself. I thought that was a huge game because if you lose that game super early in the year, that can really take a toll on a team, especially with all the portal and guys are still getting to know each other. Um, I love Durkin. I think our defense is really good. I do. I think they play with tenacity, physicality. They're very athletic, which I think from this last year to this year, athleticism is on a whole new level with this team. As Freeze had talked about all off season, with the recruits they brought in and the portal guys, I think that's pretty evident so far into this season. Um, Baylor, probably not what everyone expected, right? To run the ball for that many yards and not really pass the ball at all. But to me, when you have a really good team, you can do both, whichever one gets you the win on that certain day. But I do think we are a good football team. Last week, obviously, it's a tough loss, and you can blame it on whatever. But if you're a player, you know what you had and you let it slip out of your hands. And I think that can really give you motivation going into next week if you don't allow it to linger for too long. If you buy into all the stuff that's outside with the refs and whatever, the things you can't control, that can lead you to not be ready to go and play a very similar team this week in A&M. But so far, I think they're a really good team. I think they compete in this league at a high level. Obviously, the first part of this SEC schedule is really difficult, and so you kind of have to weather the storm with that a little bit. And you need to at least take a couple here early to get the momentum because the back half is a little more favorable than the front half. But super pleased. Quarterback's not turning the ball over. Huge plus, especially in the SEC with these games. So I see that. He's using his legs well, making good decisions. And, I think if we can we haven't had one game where everything's going, right? We haven't been able to run the ball and throw the ball in one game this year. So if you can mend those two things together in the coming weeks, I think you can have something special because I think the defense is going to play hard. They're going to play really tough. Durkin always seems to have that ability to do that. So I never count them out of that.
What are your impressions? Like, so we've obviously had a bunch of conversations about Jackson Arnold. I mean, it's been the hot topic. I don't know, spring, summer, like it's always the hot topic. I mean, and quarterback is the most important position, and that's the position that needed to get better a little bit. You go out and you get Jackson Arnold and all that. I'm curious what you've seen because on one hand, no turnovers. That's like considering what we saw last year, you couldn't ask for more. Like if somebody told you going into the year through 4 games, he's going to have 0 interceptions, you'd be like, that sounds great. But there's been some, I guess, I don't even know what I would call them. I wouldn't call them hiccups in downfield. They did a little bit better at OU, but there have been some misses there. But the biggest thing I think we've heard from Freeze now after the Oklahoma game is I want him to take more chance. I think they want him to be a little bit more risky. Like they want him to get rid of the ball, take a shot one-on-one. They want him to take a few chances, which is just funny. I feel like it's this weird dynamic of take care of the ball, but take chances. That's hard to do as a quarterback. What's your sort of impressions of Jackson overall and how he's playing, what his ceiling is? Because I also talk to people and say, like, the thing to remember about him is he's 1 year in. Last year was his first year playing, and it was complete dysfunction in Oklahoma. They had injuries all over the place. Like, so there's a lot of room for growth with him. He's not a finished product either. But what's your take on him? And then also, what's kind of your opinion, obviously having been in those huddles and been in those meetings, of the challenge of, hey, take chances, but take care of the ball and know when to run. Like that's a lot of, I mean, that's what you're asked to do as a quarterback, but that's hard.
Right. That's super difficult. That's why they play the hardest position in the sport, but they're here for a reason. No, I think Jackson's impressed me. I think he is really, really calm in the pocket. I thought last week there were some times where he stood back there so long the clock still was ticking. It wasn't like he wasn't really urgent sometimes in some of those seconds. I think he probably could have moved a little bit, but he's trying to give his guys downfield a chance, which I understand too. So yeah, I agree. I think early he was very conservative, and I don't know if that's Freeze or if that's just his past, and he's trying to just make the right decision and take the safe decision and move on. I don't know what that is, but you can't knock him for no interceptions, right? Like that. Normally, that's a huge key to winning games in the SEC is no interceptions, no turnovers. But I agree. I mean, last week Cam Coleman, obviously unbelievable player. You got to give him opportunities. He's going to win the one-on-ones. Get Singleton involved. Like you get these guys that can win these one-on-ones, but it can also, I can understand too, maybe in the game plan they were like, you need to be conservative here, take risk here. But I've been very impressed. Obviously, his legs are a threat to anybody that plays, and I think getting that on film early in the year to where he can run, that just makes it harder for defenses to plan because then they don't know, okay, is this a QB power game? But you got to be aware he can run, he can do all these things. So I think if you do that early in the year, it does help you later on because then these teams have to plan for everything and not just a couple things, which can be huge. And just putting in the mind of the defensive coordinator for that week can help you a lot, especially in game planning.
That's true. It's a good point. It's a good point about him coming out of the gate hot, running the ball against Baylor. Right off the bat, every team moving forward has to think about that, and so I think yeah, that's a good point. It just adds that element that they've got to prepare for. But yeah, I personally think maybe it's wishful thinking. It's just an optimistic viewpoint, but I told our board that there was a lot of times during that Oklahoma game that I thought about the 2017 Auburn Clemson game in Clemson. And it was Jared Stidham was first year, it was like the second game of the year, maybe. And he got sacked like 10 times. Auburn still was in that game, had a chance to win because the defense played really well. But he was just every time they just would drop back, it'd hold the ball, stuff wouldn't come open. He was sacked over and over and over in that game. But you didn't see a game like that the rest of the season. Like it was so glaring what happened in Clemson that day that they changed. They stopped trying to go deep all the time, and not everything had to be, 4 seconds of development and go so vertical. And you leaned on Kerryon Johnson. You said, hold on, we got Kerryon back here. And the offense was really good the rest of the year. And I'm wondering if the same can't happen. Like, I'm wondering if what we saw against OU was so obvious that he held the ball too long. And maybe even I'm not an X's and O's, but I'm sure there's some plays or routes where Freeze was like, probably shouldn't have called that. Or maybe against that defense, I ran some stuff that just took too long to develop in that situation, and I put him in a bad spot. I think he said 5 of the sacks he thought were on Arnold, 5 of the sacks he thought were just OU twisting and confusing or whatever it is. But it was just so bad and so glaring that I would like to think that we don't see anything close to that again. Like, I would like to think in College Station that it looks much different, that he gets rid of the ball or takes his one-on-one shot or looks for a little lane and goes forward and gets 2 or 3 yards, even if they tackle him, and you take it to the next play. Could be wrong, but it's just like it was so glaring that has to be fixed that I'm hopeful that that it doesn't look like that at all moving forward, the same way that 2017 season and that sort of transpired. That's kind of my hope. I'm not fully convinced that like this is a massive, like that they're going to turn around College Station and get sacked 7 times. If that happens, I'll be really surprised. I really think that they'll do things to clean that up and do better.
Yeah, that's a great point. I remember that game very vividly. And yeah, it's very similar. And yeah, you have, I mean, when you play Venables, you know that it's coming, right? Like if you get in third and long, anything 7+, you know it's coming. And I feel like we did play behind the chains a couple times where those sacks, it was just, they were going to pin their ears back and they were coming, and he was going to bring some exotic pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's known for, right? So if you play behind the sticks with Venables, it is going to be a nightmare situation. And not all of those were that. I understand that. I'm sure I didn't watch, obviously I'm not in there watching film with those guys. I don't know whose fault was who, but yes, you know that with him, that is a dangerous place to be in. But you're right. I don't think that would happen again. I think that if anything, that's a wake up call because we do have a good O line. I feel like we have a veteran O line. We got better in the portal. I think last week was kind of just a crazy situation. First SEC game on the road, big time game. And I think that sometimes that happens. And you're right. I think that could be a great thing moving forward. They could lock it down and that could not happen again, which hopefully it won't. But no, that's a great point. You want it to happen earlier than later, obviously. But also on the other end of that, now teams know what gets you. So you have to be really prepared with those stunts and things because other teams, you don't think Kirby Smart was watching the game and knows what Eagles is doing? Like he's gonna simulate some of the same pressures if that's what gets you out of the pocket, whatever that may be. So, but yes, I agree. I don't see that happening again. I think the O line will figure it out. They have great veterans. Connor Lew is obviously a great player as well at center and can direct traffic. So, I hope that is a wake up call, and I'd be shocked if we give up more than 5 in A&M. I mean, obviously that'd be great. They always have a good D line, so that's. But I would agree with you on that.
All right, let's talk about this game a little bit. A&M, Auburn at at Texas A&M. Auburn's still looking for their first. They're looking for their first win against the top 10 team since 2021. A&M comes in ranked 9th. They're looking for their first road win against a top 10 team since 2014. That was at Ole Miss. So over 10 years since you've had a top 10 road win. I think their last ranked road win was, I looked it up last week, now I forgot. I think it was 21 Arkansas or something. I think Arkansas was actually ranked, and Auburn went on there and went in there and won. So it's been a minute. Auburn comes in. Look, they're still running the ball pretty well. OU was tough. The biggest surprise to me about Auburn so far is their rush defense has been great. They held Oklahoma to 32 yards rushing. They shut down Baylor's run. Like, that defensive line has not been talked about enough. Probably I've written about it, but that group has been really, really good, stout. So really, really kudos to them. Obviously, Texas A&M comes in, huge win over Notre Dame. Marcel Reed is up there among Heisman favorites. They keep winning. He's dynamic. They had a bye week when Auburn's playing OU right before we went on. That I like, the storyline for me is Auburn going to let last week affect this week? Does Auburn need to go in there and win? Yes. I'm not, this is going to sound like a moral victory kind of statement. I'm almost paying just as close attention to, can they put together two good defensive performances? Like, we're still early in the year. They didn't tackle well and play well at Baylor. They did at OU. So really, in Ball State, I don't even want to count Ball State. Ball State that was a complete mismatch. So I'd like to see the defense put together another performance where you only miss 4 or 5 tackles and you play really good run defense. Like, show me it's a trend and maybe not just one game. I'd like to see that. I think the offense will play better. I think it was just, there were some things that happened in Norman that I think they'll fix some stuff, and I think they'll run the ball a little bit. I think they will play better. I am concerned about Marcel Reed. Like, as good as John Mateer is and all that, I think A&M's running backs are better. And Marcel Reed is so dangerous. Like, he's a different animal than John Mateer, I think, in terms of running. Notre Dame's a pretty good defense, and A&M went to Notre Dame and put up 40. So I kind of see the game being more high scoring on both sides of the ball. I thought going into the Norman game, the game at OU, I thought that would be the under. I even said on the show, I was like, I think this is not going to be a shootout. I think this will be, I predicted Auburn to pull it off 24-21, but I thought that's about where it'd be. This one feels like it's going to be more high scoring on both ends. That's my opinion. I think the over-under is 52, so that's about 5 points higher than the Oklahoma game. What is the dynamic of coming off a game like OU where you feel like you should have won, or you feel like the refs cheated you, or you feel like you missed some plays, or whatever it is, and you got to go right back on the road and try to do it again over a top 10 team? How hard is that? And what would it say if they can go in there and take this thing 5-6 minutes to go and have another chance to win? Like, even if you lost that, I don't want to say it's good to lose. It's not acceptable. But even if you were 5 minutes to go, you lost another heartbreaker, let's say, I wouldn't be totally disappointed, because that would give me, as a player and somebody watches, a lot of confidence that they can then go a bye week and come home against Georgia and win that game. Like, I just want to see another physical, good performance 2 weeks in a row.
I agree. I think it can go two ways. You can have your team completely buy in and be frustrated about last week and what happened, and say, we had things we could control that we didn't. We had too many penalties, too many sacks, whatever it may be. Defense played great, and you're right. That is a tall task to play as good as they did last week. But you've set the standard at that point. You know it's possible. You have to be just as dialed in as you were last week in practice, all throughout the week. And you're pretty much going to play in probably a little bit louder, crazier environment.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn does tend to play pretty well there. That's normally, for some reason, that's a place, at least in my career, where we went in there and we felt comfortable playing, felt like we had a chance to win every game we were in there. And I think they will feel the same way. But it is difficult. It is a challenge when you lose a heartbreaker to come back and go back on the road. But you have to completely flush it. Short-term memory, move on, allow it to fuel you, but don't allow it to seep into the team that, if we can't take what we had last week, then we can't take what we got this week. But Also, Marcel Reed, unbelievable player, super dynamic. But I mean, last year we were able to handle him too. So I think that maybe Free shows some of that to the defense, just confidence wise. That hey, we have a plan here. We have a DC that's handled this and knows how to play against this guy. Um, but yes, I agree. I think their backs are really good. They'll always have a good D line. Always. I think Elko's a great coach. But I feel good about this game. I really do. I think I don't know if it's going to be a shootout. I don't know if it's. I don't know about the score. Honestly, I think it seems like Auburn's kind of quiet right now in the news. Like we're not saying a whole lot. Maybe that's a great thing that we're putting our nose down and getting to work and trying to win a football game because there's nothing like winning before a bye week. So I just think that can be a really difficult thing. If you lose on a bye, it makes it really difficult because you got to sit on that for 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
I just I when you really want to win them before a bye, and then Georgia obviously when they come here, anything can happen. And I just this one's really big. I've always said in these first 3 games, Oklahoma, A&M, Georgia, if you can get 2 out of the 3, I mean you got a chance for a playoff run if you can get those. That's 2 top 10 wins, one at home, one away. Now, if you win the next 2, and then the back half is more favorable than the front half. So, um, I think it's all hands on deck. I think if you get the guys to buy in with the new playoff format, you can lose a couple of games and still get in, which is a great thing, and it keeps guys bought in. So I think this is a huge game, but I think it's also a very winnable game.
Yeah. I was like looking through these stats in the Freeze era. There's some of these that I point out every Friday. When scoring less than 20 points in the Freeze era, Auburn's 1-11. They didn't hit 20 against OU. When they hit 20, they're 13-4. What's another one? When they have a 100-yard rusher, they're 11-0 under Hugh Freeze. And there was another one that was like just almost a lock every time. Leading at half, they're 12-1. Trailing at half, they're 1-9. So it's like getting to 20, having a 100-yard rusher, or leading at half or trailing at half. Like those 3, it's almost 100% one way or the other in the Freeze era. And they were, I guess it was 10-10 at OU, so it was tied at half. They didn't score first, and they didn't have a 100-yard rusher. I was looking at the A&M series, and yeah, there for a minute, Auburn went to College Station and won in 2013, 2015, 2017, and 2019. So at one point they had won 4 straight in College Station, but it was funny because at the same time, A&M won in Auburn in 2012, 2014, 2016. So there for a year, it was just going back and forth, and the road team won, and then Auburn won 3 in a row. But then lately, Auburn's gone to A&M and lost in 21 and 23 and did not play well offensively. 2021, they scored 3 points. I remember that was pretty bad. And then last year, they scored 10. So actually, matter of fact, because I think not last year, 2 years ago, 23, I think that was the Asante fumble return for a touchdown.
Yes.
So here's a stat. So that means that Auburn hasn't scored an offensive touchdown in College Station since 2019.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been 2 straight trips that they've gone there and not scored an offensive touchdown. Wow.
That's a wild stat. I remember 21. That was a big game. I think we were both top 15 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a good defense, but yeah, super slow on offense. We made a few mistakes in the red zone that game that cost us. But yeah, I mean, for some reason I feel like we have the ability to go in there and win games when we go to A&M. I've never doubted that one bit. So I think Cobb can get 100. I think he's kind of a lightning in a bottle. Like it seems like he's always one hit away from breaking a big one. So I'll be interested to see. But I think you have to lean on the run game after last week. You have to start it. I mean, yeah, it might be slow early, but you got to wear them down. I think we have the offensive line to do that with the running back. So, and if Austin's healthy and ready to go, then you have a two man crew back there. So, but yeah, I think 100 yards is very reasonable. for one of those guys, but you have to start early.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at A&M's rush defense. Interesting. So they gave up 200 yards rushing to UTSA, 6 yards a carry. Then they came back, played Utah State, gave up 35 carries for 78 yards to shut them down. And then at Notre Dame, 39 carries for a buck 36 for Notre Dame, so 3.49, pretty good. So Notre Dame was better. UTSA got to 200. Auburn's got to. I mean, they couldn't get anything going against OU. I thought at times against OU I thought maybe a few times they should bang their head against the wall a little bit and keep it going. But Hugh Freeze said after the game, we actually called more runs than you saw, but Jackson did the RPO game and threw it. And he goes, that's okay. That's our offense. And it didn't sound like he was blaming Jackson for the decision, but he did say we did call more runs than you saw. The running backs only had 13 carries in that game. You got to have a little more consistency running the ball, and Jackson's legs just have to be a part of the game. They weren't in Oklahoma. Credit Oklahoma's defensive front. Maybe that front is like literally one of the best 3 or 4 fronts in college football. And I think there were even times that they were waiting on him. I think there were times because there was a couple times when he tried to escape, and there was somebody right there that I think was probably paying attention to him. Like a defensive lineman's not going to chase him down, but if a defensive lineman is kind of keeping his eyes on him and sort of waiting on him to take off, well, then yeah, they can make a play. And I thought there were some of those instances where they were just waiting. They were waiting for him to try to escape, and he just couldn't get out and make a play. But I think his legs have just got to be in this offense. They've got to be a part, whether it's design runs, whether it's escaping. He's got to go for, he needs at least 30 rushing yards a game. Like that's just kind of some scrambles. And if he goes beyond that, great. But in these big games, I think if he has a game where he just has 0 rushing yards, not that they can't win, but then it's all on the running backs, or you have a big passing game. So I would like to see him try to figure out some things. The defense is where I'm curious, man, because I just think that A&M offense with Marcel Reed is. I remember last year, yes, Auburn won that game, but the second half, Auburn jumped on A&M like 21-3 or something. In the second half of that game, A&M dominated the second half of that football game. It was everything Auburn did just to hold on and go to overtime. Like A&M torched them in the second half. So I'm curious to sort of see how that goes. I just have a feeling that both teams will score a little bit more than what we saw in Norman. But again, my hope is that they're sitting there 6 minutes to go and they have a chance to win. If you do that, it'll just give me a lot of hope for Georgia, for Missouri, for Vandy, like for Alabama. We're still early in the season. And even if you lost, if you go put together another physical performance, clean up the penalties, don't allow as many sacks, how many teams would go to OU and Texas A&M back-to-back and lose? Pretty much everybody. Like pretty much everybody. I mean, think of what you're asking. How many teams are going to go back-to-back top 10 teams and win one of those? Very few teams are pulling out a win in that scenario. Like that's what we're asking Auburn to do. Not that I don't think they can do it. If they lose in another game that's really close, really tight, where you go, man, they went toe-to-toe. It would tell me a lot more about the team. But it's going to be tough, especially that bye week. That's a big factor. A&M's just sitting there for 2 weeks watching film, man.
Hard.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's hard. You cannot let that distract you. But yeah, they're going to be fresh. You might have to, weather the storm a little bit early because they're so fresh. They're going to be juiced, ready to go. Is it their first SEC game, A&M?
Yeah. UTSA, Utah State, Notre Dame, bye.
Yeah, so they're going to be. I mean, this is their coming out party for the SEC. So you may have to weather the storm early, and that might be. You might get down a score or two really early, but you weather that. You allow the defense to settle in, calm down, and then you go to work and you just build your way back into it. Sometimes that happens with these kind of games. We always felt after a bye, you should never lose a game. I mean, you have an advantage. You have rest early in the year too. That's a big advantage, but you can never let that seep into your mind. And it really doesn't matter because once you step between the lines, it's 60 minutes, and who can play the best ball in those 60 minutes? Doesn't really matter what happened outside of that. But yeah, I agree. I agree. If Auburn fought for 4 quarters and it was a tight game at the end of the game and it just went one way or the other, whoever had the ball last won. I mean, that's yeah, you're gonna hurt, but you also gonna be like, we have a good football team. Like we are gonna compete with these guys. We're playing 2 top 10 teams. We have a bye and we play a top 5 team that comes home finally. So yes, it is a challenge, and very very few teams would come out with a win, um, and obviously that's why everyone's so upset about Oklahoma because
Mhm.
you weren't able to finish. Um, but yes, this is I agree with you on that on the keeping it close.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and if you want to reach 9, I've just always said one of these 3 somehow, some way, get one. If they lose at A&M and lose to Georgia, there's just there. If 9 is your goal, there's zero margin for error at that point. You can't you literally can't lose again. So and just getting one of those would be too. All right, what is it going to take for Auburn to win this? Is there anything that stands out? I went 31-24. I think that's what I sent to B Matt. I think now I'm forgetting, but some 31-24, 31-27, something like that, where I think could have even been 34-28. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a little more high scoring than it was in Oklahoma. Um, but I think they'll be there. I mean, I think they'll have a chance. I mean, there's just golly, man, like 13 penalties last week. Special teams you drop a punt, you catch a punt at your goal line. I mean, and then the bad calls. Like the resiliency of last week to lead with 6 minutes left is kind of crazy considering what happened. Um, so I want to see those things cleaned up. I'm just a little concerned about A&M with a bye week and Marcel Reed and how dangerous he is. Keeping him in check is hard, and I just feel like I don't know. I just feel like that they're going to get to 30 or 31, and I think Auburn will play a little bit better offensively, but I'm just not sure. I loved the scenario last week better than I loved the scenario this week. That's just kind of where I'm at. So I kind of am taking A&M by 7. I'd be I'd be surprised if Auburn goes in there and lays an egg. I just think they've got too much talent for that this year. And it's too early in the season. It's not like mid-October, season's not going your way, and you're sluggish, you're tired or something. Like you can't go in there and lay an egg for game 5. I don't necessarily see that happening, but it's hard to pick Auburn in this scenario to win. So I think I've got A&M by about a touchdown, 31-24, 34-27, something like that. How do you see it? Whether it's a score prediction or is there like one or two things that you're like, if they do this or don't do this, it'll create an outcome?
I think defensively, when you play Marcel and a guy like that, I think defensive discipline wins this game if you have that. If you do your job and your job only, if you're Reed or if you're a spy, you have to do your job. You have to bring him down. Because if you're out of whack and you lose your responsibility, he's going to break you for 50 yards. This isn't where I feel like last week, Mateer, we kind of took away some of his best play just based off of discipline and being in the right spots and doing your job. I thought we did a great job of that. I don't think we let him just run all over us and throw the ball all around the field like he had been for the first 3 weeks of the year. So I think defensive discipline, D line, I think has to come back again. I think Keldrick is an unbelievable player, and so is Crawford on the other side. But I think they have to contain him. Rush integrity will be huge. And then offensively, like we were saying, I think if Cobb or Austin rushes for 100 yards, I think Auburn wins because I think they're going to get Jackson to throw the ball down the field. I feel that way after last week. I think they have more confidence to throw the ball down the field. We already know the weapons are there. You have Kim Coleman in his second year. You have Singleton. You have Malcolm Johnson. So you have some great players outside that can really run and go get it. But I think it starts with the run game because everything goes off of that. Because then you can get in the RPOs, and then they fill the box, and then you can throw it right over them. So I think if you can run the ball for over 150 total, I think you can win the game. Now that may be tough early. It may be 50 yards in the first half and then 100 in the second half. But that's kind of the way you're going to win these tough games. It's not going to come easy in those situations. And then Arnold, obviously, again, needs to play no fumbles, no interceptions. And obviously, he's going to make a mistake at some point in the year. He's not going to go. He's probably not going to go all year without interception, which would be amazing. But I don't know if that's ever happened. So at some point, that may happen. But I agree. The resilience of this team, you can see it, is unbelievable. And if they come with that same level this week, there's no telling what they can do. And if you take those penalties away, which were most of them were pre-snap, so it's not even ball's not even snapping, you're penalizing yourself. But I think 100-yard rusher, defensive integrity, know your job, do your job. I think Auburn can win the game.
Well, it should be a good one. 2:30. What is it on? ESPN? ESPN. I think LSU Ole Miss is 2:30 ABC. So you're gonna have LSU, Ole Miss, and Auburn A&M. I think going at the same time, and then you've got at night you've got Bama, Georgia at 6:30, and Penn State, Oregon at 6:30. So there's some good games, but dang it, they're at the same time. A couple of them, which is annoying. Bama, Georgia should be a good one. Why would it not shock me at all if Alabama wins that game? Like, why would that just not shock me?
I thought about that yesterday. I was like, you know what? They laid an absolute egg week one, but since then, I mean, I know they haven't played great opponents. I understand that.
Yeah.
But their offense is hitting on all cylinders lately. Georgia's coming off pretty. They both have a bye. I understand that. But if I think Kirby wanted to, I think it would have been better for Kirby to lose Tennessee because you win that game with all the mistakes. For some of those players, it's hard to correct those that have the same intention in practice when you win the game as opposed to losing, especially early in the year. You can recover from an early loss. Like, especially now, you can have an early loss or two, you can still be in the CFP. So I would not be shocked. Now, it would be tough at night in Athens. That'll be tough to win. But I would not be shocked. Some people don't close. I think it has a chance to be pretty close. I think Bama's gonna come ready to go. But it is Kirby. They haven't lost in like 37 games or something crazy. So
yeah.
But I agree. And then Oregon Penn State, great matchup. And there's drama in the Kiffin household at LSU. So
that's crazy.
We'll see. We'll see if the over is taken or not. I don't know.
That is crap. I just found out about this week. That is bonkers.
Yeah,
I can't believe that's a wild situation.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Bonkers. Some good games. By the way, I was looking back at that 13 season because I couldn't remember. Auburn had that game in Baton Rouge where they got down and they fought back and they lost that game by 14, but they won like the last 20 minutes or so of that game, 25 minutes, and that was the season. Then they went to Texas A&M when they were ranked 7th and they won that game. But in between there, they had a home win over a top 25 Ole Miss team. Because I was just thinking about that. It just came to mind. Like that felt similar. They went to Baton Rouge, they lost, but they showed that they could compete. And then a few weeks later, they went to A&M and beat a top 10 A&M team. This is a little different because it's 1 week later, and you don't have a top 25 win under your belt before that. So it's a little different situation. But you have a road game in which you competed and could have won, and you didn't. So I mean, it's certainly possible to bounce back. It would be maybe this would be one of the biggest wins in a long time, not just because of A&M's ranking, where Auburn is as a program, coming off of two top 10 games in a row on the road. It just would be the circumstances, everything around it. It would be, I mean, the last ranked win was the one that was the Harsin win over Ole Miss at home, and this would be way bigger than that. I mean, this would be, I don't know, this would be one of the biggest wins in a lot of years, I think, and it would set up a pretty monster Auburn Georgia game in 2 weeks. So we'll see how it goes. Should be a good one. 2:30 ESPN, Auburn at Texas A&M. A lot of traveling for Auburn. They go to A&M. They got to go to Arkansas later. They've already been to Baylor and Oklahoma. They're just playing out west. So Appreciate you, dude. We'll come back and do this next week. Everybody go to auburnsports.com, subscribe to the YouTube, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. Friday forecast, and we'll be back with you guys next week.